The shift is live. I feel like we haven't done this in like years. A normal episode. Nick, we've been all these sites. We've been doing. We were at I almost said Williamsport. Got Little League World Series on my mind.
That's all you're
We
thinking
were.
about it.
Yeah, we're just I see your shirt. Your shirt still kind of has like the little outline of the logo, even though it's not. It's the Athletics. But yeah, love that shirt, by the way. Shout out to George Earnshaw.
George,
And
the Moose.
the watch. Yes. So yeah, I don't. It's been a while since we've done like a normal episode on StreamYard like this, like in our rooms, Nick. Like this is crazy. It feels it's weird.
Yeah,
Right?
we haven't been in our home studios for a little while, right?
Yeah,
Like we've been
it's about
all over the
time.
place. Cooperstown. We went to Wilmington. We saw some minor league
See, you almost said
baseball.
Williamsport
I
too.
know I did too, because you got me. It was your fault. It's your fault. You
It's
started a
always my
trend.
fault.
No, but it was great, man. We did some really cool interviews. We got to talk to Kevin Linton. Got to talk to Pete Enarado. He came on the show. We were up seeing just all this baseball history. It was awesome, man. Cooperstown was great. Had a fun time up there. Wilmington, always a great time to go down there as well. But yeah, we're back. We're finally back to our normal our normal setting,
habitat.
I guess. Yeah, habitat. Yeah, our normal setting, habitat. We're back. We're back on our normal spot. So, but no, it was great. And I'm sure we're gonna have probably more in the future doing stuff along those lines. And but yeah, we're back. We're ready to do the shift from our home habitats. Yeah, our home habitats. HH. Boom. Let's go. I'm ready.
H double H. Yeah. By the way, just to piggyback off what you said, make sure you go check out our episodes, our trade deadline episode, because it still applies. It's still fresh. I know it's been a couple of weeks now, but it's still sort of fresh. You want to check in and see how certain players are helping out certain teams and whatnot. So make sure you watch our trade deadline episode. Make sure you watch our Cooperstown episode from about 3 weeks ago now. You can still go watch that. We talked about if you're a big fan of the Hall of Fame, which you most likely are if you're a baseball fan. So go watch that. Go listen to that, obviously, as well on any podcast streaming platform. And our interview with Kevin Linton, who is the Blue Rocks PA announcer. Go make sure you check that out. That's on YouTube. That's on Spotify, Apple, Google, anywhere you want to listen to your podcast. It's there. So go make sure you check that out. So, Nick, it feels great to be back on our home habitats. And, one, I don't even know what to call them. The umpires. I don't think they're going to be in their normal habitats anymore, bro. I think this isn't even a question of, and I know our general question here about the Robo-Umps is going to be, should they be next? Like, they're going to be next, really. But I will ask you that first though, because you're the one who posed this question. Let's get into the Robo-Umps just because, Justin Turner was up to bat last night against Washington, and there was a call about 3 yards outside of the zone from the outside corner. It was really bad. Now, I think at the end of the day, these are just certain calls that we're picking out. I still don't think it's as bad as people make it seem, but Nick, do you think that they should be next, Robo-Umps?
Yes, but I don't know how soon. What I think's an interesting topic that's been brought up in this discussion, the box that they show on TV. I think that's put a laser focus on the umpires. And I think is it for good or is it for bad? I don't know. I want to see the call get right. I want to see them call balls and strikes correctly. It stinks to see some of these calls that are pitches 3, 4, 5 inches off the plate that are getting called strikes from what it looks like on TV. So I think a lot of it has to do with that, seeing the box on TV, the strike zone, the stat cast. These umpires are under a microscope now. I think we're gonna get robo umpires. I think it's bound to happen. You already seen iterations of it in the minor leagues. But I understand the argument of the human element to it, right? I mean, it's a human game. There's gonna be human error. I totally get it. But I think you want to get these right, and seeing some of these egregious ball and strikes calls. I mean, it's tough, especially when they're in big situations. I think that's what's really been magnified, and it happened during the Phillies game with Alec Boehm. Like, it was in a big situation, bases loaded. 2 outs, full count. Bryce Harper's on deck, and a ball that's probably 3.5 inches off the plate gets called a strike. And the rest of the game, I mean, if you look at the scorecards that have been put out on social media, some of these umpires, they've done a really consistent job. But when it happens in those big moments, then the rest of it goes out the window, right? Like you can call a consistent game for 7 innings. In the eighth inning, if you make one bad call, that's what's going to get magnified. So I think there's some really good umpires out there that are consistent, and that's all you can ask for as a baseball player and a hitter. You just want consistency out of the umps. But when some of these big time calls get magnified in big spots, I mean, then this is when this discussion comes up with the Robo-Umps. I wouldn't mind it having you can still have an umpire back there being fed the balls and strikes, and what a computer does, like tennis. They have the idea. I've heard this argument. They use computers to track where the ball goes, where the ball lands, if it's in or out of bounds. So why not baseball kind of do the same thing for a strike zone? I think you got to get rid of this on TV. I think you got to get rid of that strike zone box. I think it hurts the umpires a lot. I don't like it, and and sometimes the way the camera's angled, the strike zone kind of gets moved around, and you don't know if it's in the right spot. So because everyone's a different height, the strike zone's different to every. It's tailored to every hitter. So that's part of it too, but. You can get rid of all that. You bring in the Robo-Umps. I'm for it. I don't think it's a bad idea to bring in these umpires. Now, when you get into the challenging thing that they've done in the minors, like asking the umpire, hey, I want to challenge that, and they feed it right to you. Actually, it was a ball. I don't know if I want to get into all that, but just having a consistency at home plate for balls and strikes, I don't think it's a bad idea, and it would get rid of all this hoopla that we've been talking about.
Yeah, so a couple of things I wanted to hit on. So being someone that does enjoy tennis, they've been using Hawkeye, which is the computer system that you mentioned. They've used that for it's probably 2000 mid 2000s, like 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. It initially was used as the challenge system, only for that, really, and it was like the U.S. Open, a lot of the hard court events. That's what it was used for, was specifically for like to challenge. So you would see players would get 3 challenges, I think, a set, and they would they'd be able to challenge each call. And I've liked that for a long time. And then the pandemic comes around, and I believe it was the US Open, and they they got rid of line judges altogether, I guess, because they wanted to, they didn't want people to, to be around each other because it's COVID and everything. So they got, and I was like, oh, I want the human element. Like I want I like when, players get upset at a line call, whatever. And now it's just all computerized. And I didn't notice anything. Like I didn't notice myself like not enjoying the matches as much. So when it comes to these, because at first my whole thing has been with the Robo-Umps has been, oh, I don't want to get rid of the human element because I like who is the Mets manager from 2015 that argued you remember that moment? Terry Collins?
Was it Collins?
Terry Collins?
It was Collins, yeah.
Right. And we got that moment. We got that moment and everything, and you love that. I love, players arguing with umps and whatnot. But
it's entertaining.
Yeah, it's entertaining. But I thought about it, and like, being a tennis fan, I'm like, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal anymore. I mean, baseball's a little different. You get the managers, along with the players and stuff like that, arguing with the umps. But just the principle here is that, like, it happened, or they got rid of it, and I didn't care anymore, and I still don't care. So I mean, I don't care when it comes to tennis anymore. So I thought about that, and I'm like, you know what? If they did bring Robo-Umps in, I don't think it would be necessarily that big of a deal. I will say this: I was reading an AP article, and they were talking about I forget who was talking about this in the AP article, but this is earlier from like May of this year, and they were talking about the ABS system, and I forget who who they were quoting, but said, "Oh, here it is, right in front of my face." So it's quote, "But you're also losing some of the human emotion of the game and the excitement of it. You know, coaches chirping from the dugout, whatever. You lose that. It just it just becomes just this game." Now maybe that's a little overstated a little bit. It's not just this game. I mean, if you're watching it just for the arguments, then that sounds like a you problem. So, but I think overall here, I don't think it is would be that big of a deal to take the that human emotion away from the game. You'll still have human emotion, guys. Bat flipping, you'll have a human emotion to it. It'll still be fun. So yeah, the tennis thing and that. So I think it'll be okay. My biggest takeaway, my biggest takeaway when it comes to the umps thing is that my overall thing is I want to get rid of the umps that are inconsistent to both sides. Cool. You call a high strike for one team, you better call for the high strike for the team on the other side. But when they're not doing that, that's when it becomes a problem. You know what, man? And I'll be real with you. We argued about this when it happened. The Alec Boehm situation where he was struck out against Minnesota in a big situation. I thought that's not the reason why they lost the game, but that inside call, which was it was a bad call, but it wasn't as bad as you were making it out to be.
It was bad.
That's not the point. That's not the point here, though. Listen, that's not the point here. The point is, if he was calling that inside call for Minnesota as well, I wouldn't have been that mad. Cool, it's in a big moment. Fine, whatever. Boom's got another strike zone. If he's calling a little inside, but if an ump is calling both the same way, I'm fine with that. But the problem is when you have these umps that aren't calling it the same way all the way through. And that's where I'm okay with the Robo-Umps. If and when it does happen, even if it's not by next year, maybe it's in like 2-3 years, maybe 5 years, I'll be okay with it because I'm tired of the inconsistent calls. That's what I'm tired of. I'm not. I could care less about umps being imperfect. Fine, as long as you're calling it both ways. But what the Robo-Umps will bring to the table is consistency the entire game, or so we think. So that's my overall takeaway.
Yeah, listen, even if you don't want to go the extreme of bringing in full robo-umps, like computers calling balls and strikes, basically, for the entire game, I feel like there's smaller ways to go about this, right? Like you should be able to challenge a ball and strike call maybe like once per game after the seventh inning or something, right? Like if it's in a big situation, like be able to challenge it, like give the manager that option. Like, hey, that wasn't even close. We're challenging that, right? Like instead of like bringing in the entire Robo-Ump thing, you want to keep the human element. Give the teams an opportunity to challenge that and say, hey, that's a bad call. The umpires need to be held accountable a little bit here. So if you want to bring in accountability to the umpires and you don't want to go to the extreme of Robo-Umps, which I'm more on the side of, yeah, probably bring them in, but I'm still a little bit on the fence with it. If you want to do that, why don't you have a challenge for it? Like I know they want to speed up the game, and that's why the whole pitch clock thing is. So don't have it in like the first through 5 innings, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th innings when it's big moments like that. You should be able to challenge the call and challenge, hey, that wasn't even close, or that was a strike. You get one challenge on balls and strikes per game, and that'll give the manager an idea of like, hey, we got to use our challenge wisely if we are going to use it in a big spot. So maybe do that. Utilize it in smaller ways while you're also keeping the human element. I think there's a way to balance both sides here, but the umpires need to be held accountable. They can call a great game, but if they miss a big call in a big spot, that's what's going to be highlighted. And if you want to kind of remove that, hold them accountable and get it right, maybe add the challenge for the balls and strikes. Later in the game, you have one per game, so you're not messing up and changing the momentum of the entirety of the contest. That's just where I'm at with it.
That's a good point. I like that. I will bring up one more thing before we get into the meat potatoes of the show. Kevin, at iRock Philly on Twitter, he said he replied because I tweeted out the call from the Justin Turner call last night. He said if they don't go to Robo-Umps, maybe somehow balls and strikes option for a batter to get a quick challenge review, like one per at bat. They're not doing one per at bat. The game's going to be 5 hours. We're not going to do that.
They do something in the minor leagues. They test it out where like
it's
with the
the
Robo,
it's the
yeah,
three the entire game though. It's just
yeah,
like
yeah,
I'm
not
okay
per
with
at bat.
yeah, that's a little too long.
That's
I'm not
ridiculous.
gonna look. I love the sport, but I am not trying to sit there for 5 hours because each batter wants to argue.
Might as well you might as well get rid of the pitch clock at that point because it'll
Yeah,
be useless.
exactly, exactly. So my
It'll
point.
be useless.
It'll be like in the NBA when they challenge, and it'll be like a 5 to 10 minute challenge every time. That's how much good time it's gonna
Yeah,
take.
no. You don't want to go that far with it. Like, I don't think you should be challenging a ball and strike call every at bat. But like, I think maybe one challenge after the sixth, seventh inning for a manager or a player. Like, hey, yeah, like just to hold them accountable because you don't want to see situations like with the bases loaded and like where it's at in a close game with a
The
bad
bone
call.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like the worst. It's like the worst, man. It
Hmm.
happened. It's happened plenty of times. To end games, it's happened. I've seen all horrific called third strikes. Like those are the times I think that you should be able to use it. And because I think there's some really good umpires. Obviously, there's the CV Buckners, the Angel Hernandezes of the world. But I mean, other than that, I think there's some really good umpires out there that are consistent and you don't have a problem with. So there's many ways to go about this. They don't have to go to the extreme full Robo-Umps. They don't have to go that far yet. But if you want to keep the human element, maybe just like tinker with it a little bit. That's all. That's all. We just want to get it right
I agree. I'm all
and just
for
have
getting
consistency.
the calls
Yeah,
right. I agree.
have
That's
consistency. That's all.
that's the name of the game is consistency. I'm in total agreement with you. All right, so let's get to the meat and potatoes. I haven't had lunch yet, so I'm actually this is
You're
gonna be
by.
good. This is
You're
gonna be
by.
good. This is gonna be extra good.
Fire. I
Yeah,
had eggs this morning though. I had egg and
me too.
cheese. Egg and
Me too.
cheese. Sandwich?
Nice. Nah, I had eggs, toast, and some
Okay.
grapes.
Oh, it's a solid one. That's
Yeah,
solid.
I like to add some fruit in there.
Yeah. Here you go.
some
Look
good
at you.
stuff. Yeah.
Healthy guy Francisco over here.
Yeah, let's talk about yeah sure. I'm trying. I need to start getting to the gym, man. I need to start hitting the gym.
Pumping the iron.
Oh, I do. All right, so
You have warning track power right now. I could just tell. You only have the warning track power.
I want to see your power. All right, let's not get too crazy here. All right, Nick Earnshaw. Let's let's get to the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about someone being healthy. Someone that's not healthy right now, unfortunately. Shane McClanahan just came out. He is done for this year and obviously and all of next year with Tommy John surgery. One of the best pitchers in the sport over the last probably 2 full seasons when he came up with the Rays a couple of years ago in 2021. The Rays lose their ace. I know they're an unconventional team as far as like using openers and whatnot, but I mean, McClanahan is your prototypical starter. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, like I said, last couple of years. They're going to lose him for the next couple of years, or probably, I guess, 2025. And then there's these reports that I know you've all heard about them. These Wander Franco reports that he had a relationship with a minor. This is all just speculation. We don't look. I'm not going to do what a lot of other people in social media have been doing, have just automatically been making assumptions on who he is as a person. Now we're not going to do that. I don't know the actual facts. We know the speculative stuff that he possibly could have a relationship with a minor. Again, just social media. Social media isn't the end all be all. Nick, you know that. I know that. So I'm not going to do that as far as that goes. But just the principle, they lose McClanahan. Wander Franco, I don't know what's going to happen. Right now, it doesn't look great. Just from the optics of it, I don't know how long Franco's going to be out. These are the two franchise cornerstones for this franchise, for this team. I mean, Franco, signs the huge contract with them. The Rays don't normally give those out to guys, but Wander Franco gets one. And Shane McClanahan, again, has been one of the better pitchers in baseball last couple of years. And, I'm sure they're going to want to try to lock him up at some point as well, just because they did with Wander. So, Nick Earnshaw, I mean, how do you feel about this for the Rays? What does this do for the Rays for the rest of the season? What do you feel about this franchise going forward?
Yeah, I mean, listen, McClanahan, just add him to the list of Rays pitchers to undergo Tommy Johnson's 20, man. I mean, you go down the list. Jeffrey Springs, Drew Rasmussen, Shane Bass, Brendan McKay, Jalen Beeks. I can keep going on some of these pitchers, man, that have undergone Tommy John. Glasnow, I think, had Tommy John too. So it stinks. You know, the Rays, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And they're not finishing as strong as they started the season, right? I mean, they had how many wins to start the year? They were in first place. Now they're 3 games back of Baltimore. They're 5-5 in their last 10. My World Series prediction is going down the tubes. But yeah, I mean, they're gonna miss McClanahan, man. This is a Cy Young type candidate, and just to have another pitcher go down, it's gonna hurt them, man. Especially in the playoffs, in a series, in a short series, in a 5-game, 7-game series, doesn't matter. Losing your top guy, it's gonna hurt. And they've just dealt with so many Tommy John issues, so many injuries to starting pitching, relief pitching, whatever, over the past couple of years. So it's going to be a huge loss. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's no other way to spin it. McClanahan going down is huge. And then on the Franco thing, the MLB is investigating. I'm sure we're going to get news probably fairly soon. But I mean, everything just seems to fall, is seemingly falling apart for the Rays right now. I mean, being back behind Baltimore, I mean, they're still in the wild card. I get it. They're still going to make the playoffs. They're 4.5 games up. I don't see them choking away that. But losing a top bat, top defender, and your top pitcher, that's going to hurt you. That's like subtracting at the deadline, pretty much. It's like you sold almost when you were so far up in the standings because you're losing all this talent. So they're gonna miss the bat of Franco. I mean, that's a cornerstone piece. And with what the allegations are, man, I don't know what could happen. They who knows if they just lose them for this year. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
You have to think about the future as well. McClanahan probably going to miss next year too with Tommy John. I don't think he's going to have a Bryce Harper type return because he's a pitcher. So yeah, a lot of things to worry about if you're the Rays, because those are your two of your top guys on both sides of it. So tough one for the Rays. I don't see them going to the World Series. I might need to revise my World Series pick at this point.
Yeah, Nick. I don't know, man. Like, I'm not saying they're going to miss the playoffs. More than likely they will, but like, I don't know. Seattle's been hot. I mean, Houston's Houston. Toronto's a good team. If Seattle keeps surging, like those 3 teams can make the playoffs. Like, who says they couldn't? I mean, who says Tampa Bay doesn't have, like, they had a bad July? I mean, I don't know if it's a slam dunk. You lose 2 of your best players. Like, I don't know. I mean, you say that, like, oh yeah, Braves made the playoffs, and like they have all these like other good players. Like, I get it. There's a reason why they're one of the best teams of baseball this year.
Yep.
But I don't know. No one expected Tampa Bay to have the type of start that they had, you know, even to this point, to be 72 and 40, whatever they are. No one like expected that. So for them to, I don't know, it wouldn't be the craziest thing if they fell off. Like, I'm just saying, it wouldn't be the craziest thing. I mean, the Yankees fell off last year, barely made. Did they barely make the playoffs? I forget. But I mean, they had that awful second half.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying the Rays will do that. The Rays will have a good team, but Seattle's still, they're surging. They're starting to be the team that we thought they'd be this year for the most part. Houston's Houston. Toronto's a good team too. Toronto was one of my World Series, like not World Series picks, but they were one of my contending picks. I don't know. It would be the craziest thing. That's all I'm saying. So I think Wander and McClanahan, I think they're big deals, man. I think they're big deals.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I mean, these are 2 top guys, man. I mean, Franco is a franchise cornerstone for them. And this whole situation now could derail him. I mean, really derail him for a while. And who knows what the future holds there. And then McClanahan, you probably aren't going to have next year too. So like, you're losing him for the playoff run this year. You're probably going to lose him pretty much all of next season. I mean, this is going to hurt Tampa Bay. I mean, it's going to hurt them. I think they still get in. Houston's there. I know Seattle's around. Toronto. They're up 4.5 games in that first wild card spot as of right now. A lot can happen till the end of September, early October, but I think they'll be able to sneak in. There's 3 spots. I think they'll be okay. They'll have to be tumultuous to end the season.
Love that word you used.
If they don't make the playoffs. So
tumultuous.
Tumultuous.
Yeah, I love how you emphasize that too. That was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Big word, big vocab word there.
Yeah,
Vocabulary.
look, you're helping me out. My vocabulary isn't the best. I don't know if you ever noticed that. I'll be honest. I'm more than often honest on this show. I'm always honest. That's not true. I'm always honest.
You are. You are.
And now I'm gonna sound like a liar. But hey,
Ah.
don't use the James Harden thing on me. Don't use the James. I was waiting for you to use the James Harden thing. Francisco is a liar, and I will not be a part of the shift anymore.
I'm not calling you a truther. Is that Drake and Josh, right?
Is that? Yeah, I don't know.
You're
not too young for Drake and Josh?
No, I'm not too young for Drake and Josh.
Aren't you like more like iCarly? You're like iCarly.
No, I watched both. I watched both.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
I'd put Drake and Josh. I'd put Drake and Josh over iCarly. Yeah, but I watched iCarly too.
You know what Drake Bell and freaking Wander Franco have in common?
Oh,
sorry, I had to bring that up. Had to bring that up.
Oh, shots.
Whoa, I'm just saying. Anyway, so as we transition into let's talk some playoffs. Let's talk about the American League and National League wildcard races. And we talked about this at like the trade deadline episode. There's a lot of teams that have shots now, or think they have shots, and maybe they do. I just kind of want to go through the American League and National League right now. Obviously, there's not going to be there's going to be certain teams we don't mention because, I mean, why are we going to mention the Mets? Why are we going to mention the Pirates? Stuff like that doesn't make sense. We're not going to mention the A's or the Kansas City Royals or anything like that. So let's keep it to, the bulk of that wild card race. Let's focus in on some of these teams. Nick, let's start with the American League. Just give me the teams that you don't trust, and then give me teams that you trust. We'll start with the bad and then go to the good.
Okay. Yankees definitely don't trust. Angels are out. No shot. Those two teams have zero shot of making the play. I'm looking at the camera. Zero shot of making the playoffs. Zero.
I gotta hide.
Boston, they're 3 games out as of this recording. I don't see them getting in. I like Toronto a lot. I think Toronto gets in. See, I like where it's at right now. Seattle's gonna be tough, man. I'd like to see them get in. They have a good squad. I don't think they get it. I think how it is right now is how it's gonna be. I think Tampa Bay, Houston, Toronto get in. I think Houston leapfrogs
in that order.
Tampa Bay. No, I think Houston leapfrogs Tampa Bay. Just because I trust Houston more, in Tampa Bay, like we just talked about, losing McClanahan, losing Franco, I think it's going to hurt them in some games. So I think Tampa Bay will fall off a little bit, but not off a cliff. So I'm going to go Houston, Tampa Bay, Toronto. A couple of teams have to make it from the AL East. They just have to. 2 teams have to make it.
All right, so I'm going to tell you teams I don't trust right now. I don't like super. We just talked about Tampa Bay, so I'll get out of the way. I don't like not trust Tampa Bay, but I don't trust them to be in that top spot. And you mentioned that too. So I think Wander and I think McClanahan, those losses do hurt. I don't trust. I don't trust Cleveland. I mean, they're 8.5 back, but don't trust Cleveland. There are too many injuries this year. The Angels, I don't trust the Angels. The rotation's not enough. They still don't have Trout. I mean, they've been terrible this month to start. We're not to start. We're in the middle of August. They've been terrible this month. The Yankees, they're not enough starting pitching. Their bullpen's great. Judge isn't going to carry you to the promised land. You need more. Garrett Cole's not going to carry to the promised land. I mean, Rodon's hurt now. He's been hurt most of the year. Yankees, I don't trust. Boston, yes and no. I mean, nah. I think maybe if Boston was in the National League, maybe I'd say yeah, but they're not. They're in the American League. So I'd say they just miss. I'm going to say this. I think Houston and Toronto both leap Tampa Bay.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a tight race between Seattle and Tampa Bay for that last wild card spot. But I think Tampa Bay will have done enough this year just to get in. I think Seattle gets hot. They stay hot. But I think that maybe towards the end of the year, it's not enough, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. It makes total sense.
Seattle has a lot of young talent, obviously with Julio and George Kirby and Logan Gilbert, but I don't think it's enough. I think Paul Sewald, him going to Arizona, I think hurts them a little bit. So I like Houston, Toronto, Tampa Bay.
Okay. I listen, I think we're both in agreement. I like Toronto. I think they have good pitching. I think that's going to help them. Gosman, I think they're a team that you have to worry about it, and they've played really good baseball. as of late, 6-4 in their last 10 games. So I think Toronto's definitely a team to watch. Their offense is good. Obviously, they have Vlad Guerrero. They'll probably get Bo Bichette back at some point, I feel like, before the playoffs. So I like where Toronto's at. So I think Toronto's going to stay in there. I think Tampa Bay is going to hang on, like you mentioned. I think they'll hang in the second spot. But I just don't know if Seattle has enough. And I don't think Boston's going to be able to leapfrog these couple of teams. I just don't see it happening. So that's where I'm at. I think we're both in agreement. Where it's at right now, it's going to maybe flip a little bit, but where with what seed everyone gets. But Tampa Bay, Houston, Toronto seem like the fit.
Yep. All right. So I'll start with National League. Obviously Atlanta's run away with National League East. Dodgers with the NL West. They've seemed like they've run away with that. The Brewers making it. It's Brewers and Reds are still a pretty tight race. I'll tell you this. I'll start here. I don't. I don't trust the Cubs. I think the Reds have made a lot of progress this year. Obviously, I don't. I think they just miss. Arizona, they give me Orioles vibes from 2022 in certain ways. Young players, Corbin Carroll. Gallen's not really young anymore. He is, but he's had some years now. But they just give me those vibes of a team that is, kind of almost ready. I'm not saying Arizona's going to be a 99 win team next year. I'm just saying I think they're a year away. They're a year away of possibly really trying to, contend there in the NL West. So I don't trust Arizona. I don't trust the Cubs either. I think the Cubs are going to finish this year like 82-80. That's kind of how I feel. I'm going to tell you, man, that I don't like the Giants for some reason. I don't like the Giants, obviously, because of being a Phillies fan in the early 2010s and stuff like that. But I don't like the Giants because a couple of years ago, they just randomly won like 500 games somehow, and everyone on their team had career years. So that part of me is like, feels that way about them. But part of me is like, I don't know. Patrick Bailey, I think, hit that walk-off homer the other day. Like, there's something about this Giants team that I do think they find a way to get in the wild card race and get in there. I think it's going to be right now. I'm totally in on the Phillies, 100%. I think that they're going to end this season at like 90 to 95 wins. And wow. I think they have a team that can seriously get back to the World Series. I like the Braves this year a little too much. But the Phillies, I don't know if I sent it to you earlier. Bleacher Report walk-off has them at the #1 rotation in baseball.
Yeah.
And I think if they're at their best, especially if Nola's great and Wheeler's great, I don't, it's hard to argue, especially with Lorenzen now. It's hard to argue.
Yeah.
Hard to argue. I like the Phil. I'm in on the Phillies. Think they get in the playoffs. I think they can be a team that makes noise and gets back to the World Series. Giants, I'm kind of in on. Miami, I still think they're in the right direction. Not in on yet. San Diego, I can't get it out of my head. For some reason, I can't let go of San Diego. And it's more of because these other teams in the National League, I don't trust. I don't trust the Reds. I don't trust the Cubs. I don't trust Arizona. I don't trust Miami. I think if San Diego has like a good next couple of 5 to 6 weeks, I know it's been what's the word you use? Tumultuous. Does that even make sense in this situation? Tumultuous locker room, whatever. I think if it clicks for them at the right time, and I understand that locker room and clubhouse matters, if it clicks for them for the right time for the next month, I see you're upset, whatever. Tell me where I'm wrong. If San Diego gets hot for the next month and a half, I think they make the playoffs, but it's more because of the other teams in the National League that I mentioned with Miami, Chicago, Cincinnati, and Arizona. I don't trust them. And obviously the Mets and whoever else, I don't trust them at all. So go ahead. Go ahead. Give me your spiel here about how you feel about the National
I'm going deep into the camera.
Oh, my God. Stop doing that.
Padres are not making the playoffs.
All right.
They have no shot. The Yankees and the Padres are one and the same. They are the same team on different coasts. They have no shot. No shot. They have problems in the locker room. They haven't lived up to expectations. The Padres are 3-7 in their last 10 games. I don't see them getting hot. They haven't been hot all season. Padres are not making the playoffs. I don't trust them whatsoever. I don't trust them. I trust the Cubs more. I trust the Reds more. I trust the Arizona Diamondbacks more. Hell, I'll even trust the Pirates more. I'm just kidding. That one was a joke.
Yeah,
That
you're
one
going
was a joke.
off the rails here.
That one was a joke. No, the Padres stink. They stink. I don't trust. What reason have the Padres give you? They're 5.5 games out of the third spot. I don't trust them at all. I really don't. I mean, they've been bad over the last couple of series. They just lost a series to the Diamondbacks. Lost that series. They're in a series right now, split with the Orioles. We'll see how that pans out. And then they got to play the Diamondbacks again. So, and I trust the Diamondbacks more. I think the Diamondbacks are better. So I think the Diamondbacks are going to take both of those series. I don't trust them whatsoever. This is just not their year. There's locker room issues. They don't play well as a cohesive unit. I'm out. I'm out on the Padres. Totally out on the Padres. They have no shot. They're so far back. And you know, if they make it, you can clip this and throw it all over Padres social media. I don't care. They're not making the play. They're not making the playoffs. No shot. Now I'll start. I'll go back to the top. I'm all in on the Phillies. I picked them to go to the World Series. They're just built. They're just a postseason. Their team is built for the postseason. They're not a regular season team to me. And now they have a rotation. Like last year, they had to do bullpen games. They had to start Noah Syndergaard. They had to start freaking Bailey Falter in the playoffs.
Bailey Falter was good in the second half, though. But go on.
Wasn't good in the playoffs.
Right.
Wasn't good in the playoffs. You don't want to start a Bailey Falter.
Well, we're talking about regular season right now, though.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But listen, I think the Phillies have a good rotation. They have good pitching. A little worried about the bullpen. Bullpen worries me a little bit. But I think they're going to be okay if they continue to hit well. Then I think the Phillies will be fine. But I think they're a lock to make it in the wild card. I think San Francisco is going to make it too. San Francisco is a little bit of a weird team to me. I'm with you there, but I think they'll find a way in. Now that third spot, Miami and Chicago. I know Miami made all those moves at the deadline, bringing in Josh Bell, etc. There's something going on in Chicago, man. There's something going on in Chicago. I don't know what it is. I think they sneak in. I really do. And I don't think they're going to go very far. Them in Miami are in tightrope, but I think they sneak in over Miami. I don't know what it is. Weird things happen in baseball, and I think this is one of those weird things that happened this year. Like we were talking about in June, late May. Oh, Chicago's going to be a seller. They're going to trade Bellinger. They're going to trade everyone. They've really turned it around. They've really turned it around. I like where they're at right now. I really do. Miami, I just don't think Miami's good enough to get in. They have the pieces, I feel like, but something weird's going to happen in September. Chicago's going to continue to stay hot, and they're going to find a way. I mean, they just came off a series win against the Blue Jays. And Toronto's a really good team. They're a team also fighting for a playoff spot. So I'm going to give the edge to Chicago. I think the Cubs get in over Miami. And my three teams are going to be the Phillies, Giants, and the Cubs. Those are the three that are going to get in from the NL. That's just where I'm at. And the Padres have no shot.
They don't. They don't have no shot. In the interest of time here,
they're under 500.
I understand that. I'm just saying though, if they find some way to all get hot at the right time, they'll be over 500 and then some, and they can get into the playoffs. That's all I'm saying.
Who do they have coming up? They have the Diamondbacks. They have the Marlins. They have the Brewers.
Right.
They have some tough. They have the Giants as well coming up. So it's going to be tough.
I get it. Look, man. But again, it could be a reverse, right? The Yankees were awesome in the first half last year and sucked in the second half. Then maybe the Padres will do the reverse. I don't know. I'm saying they're capable of doing it, and I just don't trust the other teams enough to where that's taking my the thought of the Padres possibly sneaking into the playoffs. I'm just saying, dude, they could be a week or two stretch where Padres just get it together. Like if they all just click at the right time, everything works. It could work. Look, Blake Snell might win the Cy Young this year. Like, I mean, come on, man. I don't know. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All right.
I don't trust them. I don't trust them. And with their schedule, all these really good teams coming up, I don't trust them. I think it's going to put them behind the 8 ball totally in these next couple of series. I mean, all of these teams are basically that they play the rest of August are fighting for their lives in the wild card. Diamondbacks, Marlins, Brewers are in the division lead, but that it's a close division. And then the Giants start off September. They play the Cardinals in there as well, but I mean the Cardinals stink. So
Yep, I got you.
I
All
don't
right,
know.
so let's
I don't see it.
No, I understand your viewpoint. I mean, the Padres haven't done a lot this year to, they've done more to not make people trust them, but I'm one of those crazy people. All right, so let's end the show today. Michael Lorenzen throws a no-hitter for the Fightin' Phils a week ago today against the Nats. We never really got a chance to talk about it. Nick, what were your overall takeaways from the no-hitter?
Oh, dude, I mean, I get to produce that game on Sports Radio WIP. I'll
Yeah,
tell you what, man.
congrats.
It was cool. It was really cool. It's his second start as a Philadelphia Philly. I think he this is the most innings he's ever pitched in his career. He's been in the in the bullpen a lot of his career with the Reds, etc. I don't know, man. He might find his way into the starting rotation for the Phillies in the playoffs. Like he might want to be one of those top starters. I don't know. I thought it was great. I'm so glad because I tweeted out during it. I want him to go 200 pitches. I don't care. Let him go. He's got to have extra 2 days off. The 6-man rotation. Just like how can you not love a no hitter? Like and to see a guy like that with his family in the stands, his first start at Citizens Bank Park. I thought it was magical, and that's the beauty of baseball right there. That was the culmination of the beauty of baseball for sure for me.
Yeah, that my biggest takeaway after watching. I think I was with you while you were producing like first 3 innings,
First couple
and
innings, yeah.
yeah, and I listened to the next couple of innings, probably like the next like 3 or 4 innings on the way home from work,
Yeah.
and I got home right in time for the bottom of the 8th and watched the final inning, and it was perfect. The best part about it for me, Nick, was being able to obviously watch it live, and because I didn't watch there was a period of time where I told you there was a period of time where I didn't watch baseball for
Yeah.
between like high school and
Mhm.
probably like towards the end of college for me. So I didn't really watch Cole Hamels no hitter
Mm.
for the Phils in 2015. I'm saying this Phillies wise. I talked about this
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
but anyway, so being able like Doc Halliday's, I think a lot of us weren't watching Doc Halliday's perfect game when it happened against the Marlins because I think the Flyers were in the Stanley Cup that day. I think so.
So it was
No,
it was crazy. It was crazy. I was watching that game. So it was like me, my mom, my dad, my brother. We were flipping back and forth between the Stanley Cup and Doc Halliday's game. I remember as clear as day. We're all sitting there. All right, intermission. Let's go back to Doc Halliday. Let's check on
yeah,
commercial. Go back to Doc Halliday's game. It was great. It was cool.
yeah. I remember obviously remember watching Doc Halliday's no hitter against the Reds. But like since then, Lorenzen was the first for me, and I'm not counting the combined no hitter that they threw in like 2014. Stupid ass combined no hitters. All right, let's end the show here, Nick. Being at in our normal habitats. Let's end the show talking about Little League World Series. So I think the Little League World Series technically starts tonight, but more importantly, as it relates to Major League Baseball, I'll be real with you. I don't even care for it. Like, yeah, of course, Phils are playing in it, and like the Phils played in it 5 years ago when they played the Mets. The Little League Classic game is back this Sunday. Phils and Nationals. Nick, are you excited for it? What's your interest level? And I'm outside of being a Phillies fan, as a baseball fan, are you interested in watching the game Sunday? What's your interest level?
Yes, I love the Little League World Series, always have. And when they added this game, I believe in 2017, the Williamsport game, I believe it's at Bowman Field, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's great. I love when Major League Baseball does these remote games, like when we do remote shows for the shift. I think it's great, man. Like seeing like all like when you're watching the game in Williamsport, you have all like the teams behind in the stands, like all the different colors, all the uniforms in the background. All the kids love it. I think it's great, man. I love how baseball has started to really market the game towards the younger generation, like going to Field of Dreams, having the game at Williamsport every year. Like it's great. Like having the Little League World Series is such a fun event. It's been around for so long. yeah, you should have a major league game there. And it's a culmination of baseball. Like it's another place where baseball feels really sacred in Little League World Series, in Williamsport, like Cooperstown is for the Hall of Fame. Like it's just another spot, Field of Dreams as well. So doing these remote games, having different teams every year, it's great, man. And having a team from Media, PA, and the Phillies playing, it's gonna be really cool.
Good old Delco.
Good old Delco. I'm not from Delco, but
I know.
you are. You're Delco bred and born.
Bred and born. So shout out to Media. I'll give you my one take before we end. I like the game. I just wish they didn't have it every year. Like they didn't do the Field of Dreams game this year. I think it was a good idea. I think I don't know when the next one is, but I'd like every couple of years. Every couple of years. That's all I'm gonna say. Maybe it was good to have that break in 2020 when they didn't have obviously for COVID reasons, but so I just like to see it every couple of years. That's all.
Every year in Williamsport. Every year. Have it every year.
Nope.
Yes.
You're wrong.
Yes.
You're wrong. That's
Have it
been
every
the
year.
shift. Nick Earnshaw wrong on the shift once again to end the show. What else is new? I don't know, but Nick Earnshaw being wrong is not new. That's what's up. So, Nick, it has been fun back in our normal studios. So it was nice to be on the road for the last couple, but that's been us. Make sure you follow our socials all down there. You know where we're at. TikTok too. Make sure you follow us on TikTok. So that's going to do it for us. And we'll talk to you guys soon.